Magic the Gathering has a secret Planeswalker that we have yet to see in card form. Greetings, hatchlings! We are here today to talk about a very interesting Planeswalker who, as of yet, does not have a card, but is already dripping with tons of flavor, and in my opinion, is basically guaranteed to end up on a card just based on the circumstances of his creation. So, to understand why I think that, first let me lay out where the information about this Planeswalker came from, and then we will talk about the Planeswalker himself. Now, some of you may already know an author by the name of Brandon Sanderson. He writes some very interesting novels. He has a number of different series. He's also the individual who was tapped to finish off the Wheel of Time series when Robert Jordan wasn't going to be able to finish it himself. Now, I am personally a fan of Brandon Sanderson. Now, obviously, in terms of keeping track of everything that an author creates, it's hard to keep on top of everything. So I only recently found out about the story, the 200 and some odd page story that he wrote for Magic the Gathering. What happened is Wizards of the Coast approached Sanderson and said, hey, we would like you to write a little short story for Magic the Gathering. You know how you see those little short stories that show up on the Wizards website? They keep putting out these little like flavor blasts. Well, he was invited to do one of those, and he turned around and said, I have an idea. I have a twist here. Instead of you paying me to write like a flavor blast for you, how about instead I write a full story for you guys for free, but I get to decide what the story is and what it involves. And so Wizards of the Coast very smartly said, yes, let's do that. And so they consulted with each other and sorted out the details of what they wanted to do, and thus was born Davriel Kane, a very, very interesting Planeswalker. Now, one of the reasons that I believe that we'll see him on a card is just the fact that Sanderson created a fully fleshed out Planeswalker for them with a backstory, tied him in to planes that already exist and magic mythos and lore. Another is the fact that they actually commissioned artwork for him. I'll show it to you here. He's sitting on a throne with his golden mask here held in front of him. He's obviously a figure that is currently shrouded in some level of secrecy. So at some point in the future, I am going to talk about the full-on story that was written. It is a 200 and some odd page story, and I did read the entire thing, and I genuinely enjoyed it. It's fantastic. But today, we're just specifically going to talk about Davriel Kane. Now, when we first see him in the actual story, he has just been stabbed with a weapon. This young villager has jabbed a weapon into him, and he shrugs it off like it's nothing. He actually laments more about his clothing. He enjoys his creature comforts. He is a man who wants to be a noble, but off in some small, quiet corner of the multiverse because he's running from something. There's all this stuff gets peeled away as you go through the story. You learn all these different details about Davriel. He's a demonologist, and what he does is he makes contracts with demons to serve him. And each of these demons, in return for their service, has stipulations under which they will get to claim his soul. Some of them have contracts that say, okay, once you reach the age of 65 without dying, then I get to claim your soul. Now, Davriel is a clever fellow who apparently has died before and come back to life. And that's why the stipulations with one of the demons would actually never result in him losing his soul. He also made a contract with a seductress demon where basically she has to try and seduce him for his soul, but instead he's using her as an accountant and bookkeeper because he was actually able to go back and look through all the contracts made previously by this demoness and go, you know what? She's really astute with her contracts. I can put her to good use. He is a clever man with some interesting abilities. Not only is he aligned with demons and things like that, but he actually has the ability to pull magic, pull abilities from other individuals. He can reach into the mind of other individuals and pull from them their special abilities. and use them on top of that. It's a very interesting, in terms of colors, he feels both red and blue aligned. The ability to steal people's magic and things like that has a very blue feel to it. The demons have a very red feel to it. The stealing abilities is interesting. Depending on the ability, basically he can hold them in his mind until he chooses to use them. And then once he uses them, they're not a one-shot use, but they do tend to fade very quickly. Now, the interesting thing about Davriel is he didn't really start out as a planeswalker. He gained his spark by stealing an entity from a dying man's mind. Okay, so he reached into the mind of a dying man and he pulled this entity from him. And this entity granted Davriel the ability to planeswalk, because the entity itself is actually all the compressed power of a dead plane. So think of a plane like Lorwyn, Zendikar, something like that. Take all the magical power of that plane when it dies and coalesce it down into an entity that exists inside of Davriel. And throughout the entire novel, the entity is seductively whispering to him, saying, use my power. This is how you will overcome. Use my power, all right? But Davriel wants to disappear. He's afraid, because when he originally got the entity, when he originally got it, he used its power and he laid waste to a ton of people. But at the same time that this happened, other planeswalkers showed up on the plane of existence that he was on and started hunting him. So he's terrified, absolutely terrified, that if he uses the entity's power, that these planeswalkers will come after him. So he walked around to some different planes and he's ignoring the entity all along. He ends up settling on Innistrad in a little backwater village as the lord of that village. And all he really cared about was running a reasonable sort of lordship where he would take care of the villages in terms of protecting them overall. And in return, he would just expect them to like make his clothes, deliver crops up to him, he has a particular type dust willow tea, which he's a huge fan of. He expects to have that sort of tribute given to him. He wants creature comforts and basically to be hidden and forgotten. When it comes to any sort of notoriety, he shuns it. He wishes to just be hidden and disappear. And part of his outfit when he goes out to hide his identity, he puts on a golden demon mask and he has a cloak that kind of hides his position to a degree and trails black ephemeral mist that like kind of smudges the air as he travels. He's a very interesting character, and this entity that is in his mind is compelling him to seek out more power. In fact, at one point in the story, I'm not going to go over everything, but at one point in the story, they locate fragments of another entity, another condensed power of a dead plane, and the entity is urging him very, very strongly to pursue this power. Like, get the power of that entity. With us together, you will be truly unstoppable. You will be lord of all. But Davriel thinks about it, and he doesn't want it. He thinks about the people who will constantly be coming and challenging him, because that's the thing about being really powerful. When you rule over everything, people want to come and contest you for that power. So basically, he just wants to sit, read books, drink his tea, make contracts with demons and trick. It's like a game for him. He likes tricking demons into serving him with really just unfair contracts where the demons don't realize that they're being outsmarted. It's pretty interesting. I genuinely enjoy it. So he's avoiding the power of the entity, and the entity is relentless. Anytime he's in a really dangerous situation, the entity is like, you need to use my power. You need to use my power now. So by the end of the storyline there, basically, he has refused to take this other entity's power. I won't go into the details because we'll talk about that when I actually go through the whole story. That way, if you want to read the story, you'll have an opportunity to read it before I go over everything. I don't want to spoil it for you. But in the end, he essentially refuses to take the power of the second entity, and the entity in his mind, the entity that's already with him, becomes angry with him and says, you are no longer worthy of me. Instead of trying to cajole him into using it, now it might be seeking a way out of him. It may be seeking a more worthy person. So his power to planeswalk, and you got to understand that this entity amplifies everything. For example, if he takes like someone's power, if he reaches into somebody's mind and takes their power, he can use it maybe for an hour. It really depends sometimes on the strength of the power. An hour, a few hours, things like that. With the power of the entity, he could use these stolen powers for weeks on end. So the amplification level, it's basically like 10, 20, 30x. You know what I mean? Basically, you could be 20 times as powerful, 30 times as powerful through using this entity. And the entity is literally the power of an entire plane. It allows you the ability to walk through the blind eternities, which is what planeswalkers travel through. So it's a really interesting, compelling story where you've got someone who just wants to live a peaceful life, but is burdened with this power that he didn't set out to have this power. He ended up with it by happenstance, taking it from what could have been a dying planeswalker. Obviously, this is somebody of some significant power if they have one of these entities, the entire power of a whole plane condensed down. I really like that. I really enjoy it. It's similar, almost like the Infinity Gems from like the whole Marvel storyline, where it's just like the condensed power of an entire plane of existence. Like, how much power would that actually be? And what happens when that power turns against you? So Davriel Kane is really, really compelling from a flavor standpoint, and I absolutely can't wait to see what card they're going to put him on. I mean, why wouldn't they? They went ahead and had the art commissioned and everything like that. It seems like it's very, very likely we will be seeing him at some point in the future, and I genuinely look forward to that. Now, my friends, today I am actually out at YouTube Space Toronto. I'm going through the Unlock the Space event, essentially, which will give me the ability to use YouTube Space and YouTube's recording gear to make videos in the future. So as long as everything goes well, there may be a step up in terms of some of the videos being recorded in funky locations. We'll have to see how that goes. But either way, that's where I am right now while you're watching the video. Later on today from Toronto, I'll be doing a live stream. Did you know that I live stream every day? Some people aren't aware of that. The live stream notifications don't go out very well. So if you want to make sure that you come out to my live streams, go ahead and join up in the Discord that I have linked below, because I list almost every live stream I do through that Discord. All of that being said, it's time to roll the golden scroll. The people who have my back on Patreon and through channel memberships. I appreciate what you guys do. And for everyone who's here, thanks for being here, and I will see you guys later.